All right, everybody, welcome back. We are diving into something pretty relevant today, something I think a lot of our listeners think about a lot.
Yeah.
So we are talking about the coddling of the American mind. No, the anxious generation
The anxious generation.
by
Yeah.
Jonathan Haidt.
Yes.
Now, a lot of you, well, probably all of you know who Jonathan Haidt is.
Right.
He's well, he's a social psychologist, right?
Yes.
And he's been kind of uh, a big name in the I don't know what you call it, what's that sphere? The public
The public intellectual sphere.
the public intellectual sphere, yeah. Especially when it comes to Gen Z, kind of looking at what's going on with their mental health.
Mm.
And this book is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Really is.
It is. It's a very compelling read.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of comes out and says, hey, kids today,
Yeah.
they're facing some pretty serious mental health issues and challenges.
All right.
And it's different.
Yes.
It's different than what we've seen before.
Yeah.
And he kind of attributes it to a couple of, I guess, major shifts
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
childhood.
Exactly.
One being the decline of something that probably a lot of us
Right.
kind of took for granted,
Mm-hmm.
growing up.
Yeah.
And the other being the rise of something that's, well, I don't know about you, but it's pretty much
Like ubiquitous.
ubiquitous these days. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, when you look at this book, I mean, what is the kind of, what that picture that he paints?
Well, he paints a pretty stark picture, I have to say. I mean, he really dives into the data, and the numbers are really striking. We're seeing this dramatic increase in mental health issues, particularly in Gen Z. I mean, anxiety, depression, self-harm, you name it.
Yeah.
And what's really alarming is that it's not just, a gradual increase. It's this sharp uptick, especially after 2010.
Yeah.
And that's what really sets this generation apart.
So, I mean, what, 2010?
Yeah.
What was going on in 2010 that, suddenly things took this turn for the
I mean, well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
and Haidt really digs into that. And one of his most, I think, compelling arguments
Yeah.
is about this decline
Yeah.
of unsupervised play.
Okay, yeah. So, less time outside, less, kind of running around with your friends.
Exactly. And it's not just about, kids needing more fresh air or exercise. I mean, think about it. When we were kids, right,
Yeah.
running around the neighborhood, building forts, playing in the woods, whatever it was,
Yeah.
you were constantly navigating these social situations, taking risks, figuring things out on your own. And all those skinned knees and playground arguments, they actually taught us
Right.
really valuable life lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn conflict resolution, you learn resilience, you learn independence. And Haidt's argument is that kids today, they're missing out on this crucial developmental stage.
And it's interesting, I think about when my kids were little.
Yeah.
And, I would always let them, play outside. I mean, not all the time, but, they'd go out in the backyard and they'd build forts and they'd have, their friends over.
Right.
And it's funny because, like, I never thought of it as, like, this crucial developmental stage.
Right.
It was just like, go outside and have fun.
Right, exactly. It was just what kids did.
Is what kids did.
Yeah.
But he's right. I mean, they were learning how to, interact with each other.
Exactly.
They were learning how to, deal with conflict. They were learning how to be, independent.
Absolutely. And I think what's happened is that we've become, as a society, so much more risk averse. We're so worried about our kids' safety.
Right.
And that's understandable.
Yeah.
But I think it's gone too far in some ways.
Yeah.
We've created this culture of fear almost.
Right.
And it's preventing kids from having those experiences that are so important for their development.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we used to, ride our bikes all over town.
Right.
We'd go to the park, we'd go to the creek, and nobody saw twice about it.
Right.
But now, if you see a kid, riding their bike down the street, you're like, oh my gosh, where are their parents?
Exactly. It's like this automatic reaction.
Yeah.
And it's sad because kids are missing out on so much.
So, okay. So we've got this decline of unsupervised play.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, is that really enough to explain this kind of widespread mental health crisis? I mean, I feel like there's got to be more to it.
Oh, absolutely. And Haidt definitely acknowledges that.
Okay.
And the other, I think, really big piece of the puzzle that he points to
Yeah.
is something that, we probably all have a bit of a love-hate relationship with.
Okay, smartphones.
Smartphones and social media.
Yeah, I was wondering when we were going to get to that.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Right.
And it's pretty obvious that, too much screen time isn't great for anyone.
Right.
But what I found really fascinating in the book is the way that Haidt really breaks down the specific harms of these technologies.
Yeah.
He outlines what he calls the four foundational harms.
Okay.
And the first one is social deprivation.
Right.
So, kids are spending a lot less time interacting face to face.
Right.
Which is essential for developing empathy, social skills, all those things that are really important for navigating the world.
Right.
The second one is sleep deprivation.
Okay.
We all know that late night scrolling can mess with our sleep.
Yeah.
But for kids who need even more sleep than adults,
Right.
the impact is even more significant.
Yeah.
The third one is attention fragmentation. So this constant, barrage of notifications, this habit of multitasking, it's literally rewiring their brains.
Wow.
Making it harder for them to focus, to learn, to really engage deeply with anything.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that, even in myself.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's like I can't focus on anything for more than, 5 minutes without checking my phone or clicking on a notification.
Right, exactly. And imagine what that's like for a developing brain.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's really concerning.
Yeah. Okay, so social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation. What's the fourth one?
The fourth one is addiction.
Okay, so he's actually saying that social media is addictive.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying.
Like a drug.
Like a drug. And he's not just, being alarmist about this. He really dives into the psychology behind it.
Right.
He talks about how these platforms, they exploit our brain's reward system.
Right.
They use these algorithms and these notifications to create this dopamine loop that keeps us hooked.
Right.
And then he actually cites a study that found that teenagers who use social media frequently, they're more likely to exhibit addictive behaviors.
Wow.
Just like someone with a substance abuse problem.
That's pretty scary.
It is scary. And I think it's something that we need to be taking a lot more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So we've got these four foundational harms of smartphones and social media. Yeah. But it's easy to kind of put all the blame on the technology itself. Right. But I'm wondering, is this just a parenting issue?
Right.
Or are there larger societal forces at play here?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's not just about individual choices, right?
All right.
Haidt acknowledges that there are these broader societal shifts that are contributing to this problem.
Yeah.
One of the things he talks about is this culture of fear that's emerged. Parents are afraid to let their kids out of their sight.
Yeah.
They're worried about stranger danger, about, all sorts of things.
Right.
And that's understandable.
Right.
But again, I think it's gone too far.
Yeah.
We've created this environment where kids aren't allowed to take risks, to explore, to be independent.
Yeah, and even if parents wanted to, let their kids have more freedom, I mean, the environment itself is often not conducive to that.
Exactly.
I mean, we've got these neighborhoods that are designed for cars, not for kids.
Right.
There's not a lot of safe places for kids to play.
Right.
And even when there are parks, they're often really crowded, or they're not really designed for kids to really let loose and have fun.
Right. Exactly. And Haidt talks about this. He talks about how even the design of our communities
is contributing to this problem.
Yeah.
He talks about the concept of play streets.
Okay.
Where streets are temporarily closed to traffic to allow for safe play.
Right.
He advocates for more green spaces, more parks that are designed with kids in mind.
Right.
Places where they can climb trees and build forts and just, be kids.
Yeah.
And he also talks about the importance of changing our mindset.
Okay.
We need to be more comfortable with risk.
Right.
We need to understand that the kids need to experience some level of risk in order to learn and to grow.
Right.
We can't protect them from everything.
Right.
And in fact, by trying to protect them from everything, we're actually doing them a disservice.
Right. Okay, so it's really a multi-pronged approach.
Absolute.
I mean, we need to address the individual choices, the parenting choices,
Right.
but we also need to address these larger societal forces.
Exactly.
The design of our communities, the culture of fear,
Right.
all of those things.
Yeah, it's a systemic issue.
It is a systemic issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of painted a pretty bleak picture here.
Yeah. I guess we have.
But I'm hoping that Haidt offers some solutions.
Oh, he absolutely does.
Okay.
And this is where I think the book really gets empowering,
Okay.
because he doesn't just leave us with a diagnosis. He gives us a call to action.
Okay.
And one of the biggest things he advocates for is delaying access to smartphones and social media
Okay.
for as long as possible.
Right.
He talks about how important it is for kids to have that time in their lives
Yeah.
where they're not constantly connected to these devices.
Right.
He also stresses the importance of creating phone-free zones,
Okay.
both at home and at school.
Right.
Having device-free dinners, having, times a day where the phones are put away.
Right. And he talks about how important it is for parents to model good behavior.
Right.
If you want your kids to put down their phones,
Yeah.
you have to put down your phone.
Right.
You have to show
Yeah.
them that there are other things
Yeah.
that are more important than them being constantly connected.
Right. Right. That's so important.
It is. It's really hard, but it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
He also talks about, setting clear limits and boundaries
Yeah.
around technology use,
Yeah.
making it clear that it's not a free-for-all.
Right.
Having rules about when and where kids can
it.
use their devices.
Right.
And those rules need to be, consistent
Right.
and need to be enforced.
Right. Right.
But it's not just about, what we do at home and at school.
Right.
He also talks about the need for bigger solutions.
Okay.
He argues that we need to rethink the design of our communities.
Right.
We need more green spaces, more parks, more places where kids can play and explore.
Right.
He talks about the concept of play streets, which I mentioned before.
Right. Right.
Where streets are temporarily closed to traffic to allow for safe play.
Right.
And he advocates for more of those kinds of initiatives.
Yeah.
He also talks about the need for policy changes
Yes.
that address the harmful aspects of social media platforms.
Right.
He believes that we need stricter regulations to protect children
Yeah.
from the addictive algorithms
Right.
and the marketing tactics that are being used against them.
Right. Right. I mean, it's almost like, these platforms are designed to be addictive.
They are.
They're designed to keep us hooked.
That's exactly right.
And kids are particularly vulnerable to that
Absolutely.
because they don't have the same, kind of I guess impulse control
Right.
that adults do.
Right.
They're still developing.
Right.
Their brains are still developing.
Right.
And so, they're more easily hooked
Right.
by these kind of addictive algorithms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's really a multi-pronged approach.
It is.
We need to tackle this from both a personal level
Oh.
and a societal level.
Absolutely.
What I love about Haidt's book is that it's not just a diagnosis of the problem. It's a call to action.
It is.
He's really kind of putting it out there and saying, hey, we need to do something about this. We can't just kind of sit back and let this happen.
Right.
Does he leave us with any kind of, I guess, final thoughts or questions to ponder?
Yeah, he does. He leaves us with this really powerful question.
Yeah.
And it's this: knowing what we now know, what small but meaningful change can we make in our own lives and communities to prioritize children's mental health?
Wow, that is a good question.
It's a really good question.
And it's a tough question.
It is.
Because it's not easy.
No.
It's not like, oh, I'm just gonna do this one thing and everything's gonna be fixed.
Yeah.
It's a lot of little things.
It is. It's a lot of little things, and it's a commitment.
Yeah.
It's a commitment to making a difference.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important.
Yeah.
We have have to do something.
Yeah.
We can't just, sit back and let this generation,
Right.
continue to struggle. We
Uh,
have to take action.
so what will our ripple be? That is a question I will be asking myself.
Exactly.
And I hope all of our listeners out there are asking themselves that question too.
I hope so too.
So there you have it, everybody. The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Fascinating book. A lot to think about.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.